Okay, hi everybody and welcome. Thank you for your patience with the little technical bump just there with the display. So we are recording today's session. We are going to be sharing it with you and with everyone else who signed up after. I'm aware that we changed the date for this. A little bit of a surprise announcement last week, of course. And we all have been, of course, rushing to respond to the election now having a date and being fixed in the diaries. So we thought it was helpful to move the date of the webinar forward for 1 week so that if you are ready and eager to get moving, you don't have to wait another week to join us and to hear from us. But if you're watching the recording, hi, sorry about the change in date. We're available for Q&A separately as well. I'll drop you an email with the information on that. So hi everybody, welcome. Today we are going to be sharing with you 5 tips to boost your impact this election year. So as you know, the election's been called now. We have just over 5 weeks until it starts. There's a lot of things you can be doing with that time to really make the most of it. And of course, the campaign doesn't end with the election date itself. Post-election is also a really critical period. So we're going to be sharing some tips with you today, a few examples from actions that are already live. We're also going to be sharing some key dates that we expect to be on the calendar in the coming 5 weeks and beyond. And of course, we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end. So today's presentation is brought to you by myself and my colleague Scott, who's joining us on the call. We also have on the call today my colleague Jess, who is going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So when I'm in presentation modes, when I can't see you properly, Jess and Scott are going to be keeping an eye on the chat. They will respond to things, post relevant links. They will also be able to flag up questions at the end for us as well. So hi, thank you for joining us, both of you. And without any further ado, I'm going to jump into the slides. So most of you, I think, already know us really well, so I'm not going to dwell on this, but we are More Onion. We are the digital mobilization agency. So we work with a huge range of clients, and we work in 3 key areas: strategy, project delivery, this includes campaign strategy, creative work, and also we have a technology platform called Impact Stack, which is for campaigning and fundraising. Now, I won't be diving too deep into technology today, but you are going to hear me mention Impact Stack a few times. This is the name of the technology that More Onion has created, and that a lot of you on the call I know are already using. So for those of you who aren't using it, if you wanted to learn more, Jess is going to give a quick demo after today's session. So please do hang on the call. And for those of you who are using it and wanting to go in a little bit more deeper detail on the technical implementation and key dates and things, Jess is also running another webinar this afternoon. You should have already got an invite to that. If not, please do just drop us a message and we'll get you along to this. So I'm not going to be going too deep into any kind of tech. This is going to be top level ideas and approaches. So why are we doing this today? So as I'm sure is not a surprise to any of you, elections pose a really rare and important opportunity for us as campaigners. Like, politicians are listening. I know theoretically they're meant to listen at all times in a democracy, but practically speaking, when they're looking for your vote is when they're listening the most and when they care about that public sentiment the most. So, and it also creates a lot of opportunities that pop up that may be directly relevant to your issue or that you can connect to your issue. So you can really connect to this broader zeitgeist of what people are thinking and feeling and use that to advance your issue and your topic. So the 3 key areas that we're really going to be looking at here is the opportunity that elections create for you to grow, for you to engage your list, and for you to build influence. That's growing the number of supporters you have, growing your outreach and your awareness, engaging people who are already with you and already support the cause and mobilizing them to action, and then building those relationships and that influence that's going to help you and your cause for many months and hopefully many years to come. So what I'd like to start with is a quick poll. So Jess is going to drop a link in the chat. You can also scan the QR code if that's your preferred method. Got a quick question for you to kick off then. So the text on this has gone weirdly small. Let me read it out for you. Hopefully it's a bit clearer on Mentimeter. So the first answer is, so it's how prepared is your organization for the general election? So question 1 is, we haven't started or we've only just started prep. Option 2 is, we're almost ready to launch. 3 is, we have launched our first action communications. And option 4 is, we're already deep into election comms. So choose which one is most relevant to your organization. And don't be intimidated by the ones already on the right. This is all completely anonymous, of course. We're not going to be following up or putting you on the spot. Interesting. Fab, thank you for sharing that input. That is actually stronger than I expected. I'm actually quite impressed with that. Although perhaps there's a sampling bias of people who come to webinars about general election and people who are thinking about general election. But that's really encouraging to see that so many of you are about ready to go or have already started your first election communications. Don't worry if you're in the four, don't panic at all. It's absolutely not too late. There's still lots of opportunities and loads of things that you can be doing. So don't panic, maybe be inspired, but don't panic. And that's really encouraging to see that so many of you have already started that. Maybe that's something we can discuss at the end if we have some time, if anyone wanted to share any examples. If you have anything you wanted to share now with the group, feel free to put links in the chat. I'm sure that people would love to see what you're working on and what you've already put out there. But anyway, let's jump in now to the 5 tips, starting with growing your supporter base. So a general election is really such an important opportunity for you to be able to recruit new supporters. So to grow the number of campaigners, fundraisers, hopefully you don't categorize them quite so siloed. So your supporters in general for your organization. So this is a really important chance for you to not only be reaching the right people, but at the right price. So these two things come together in the context of election, in that the right people are naturally already thinking about your issue right now. It's already something that they maybe have in front of their mind. Maybe they're going to vote based upon it. Maybe it's a conversation that they're looking to have with canvassers or with candidates. So people are already thinking and talking with friends and family in a way that they don't normally do in a day-to-day. So it's easy to identify those people because they already have issues on their mind in a way that they don't usually have. And the right price is that because it's already out there and people are already thinking and engaging and feeling active, you can often get a much better cost per new supporter if you're doing advertising to recruit new people. So in this context, typically I mean Facebook, i.e. Meta, for your ads. But it's a really important opportunity to grow because of those 2 reasons. You can get the right people at the right price. So in order to do this, you of course need to make sure that you are launching timely and relevant actions that are going to appeal to this target audience. So things that you can use to put out there, to put on your ads, to get people involved. I say there's broadly 2 approaches to this. Of course, there's a lot of nuance, there's many variants of this, but generally speaking, you take an approach where you focus on what we call low bar actions. So these are easy to take actions like sign a petition, sign a hand raise, etc. These are the kind of actions you want to prioritize if you're looking to get a high volume of growth. So you're looking for lots of supporters and at a low cost. But the other tactic you could consider is doing higher bar actions, i.e. harder to do, for example, emailing PPCs or sharing a story. This will attract fewer people and it will cost more per person recruited, but they will be more committed to your cause, they will be much more involved and invested in it. So deciding between these 2 approaches, or indeed if you want to try them both, but do keep them separate, then you're going to have to make that decision based upon what's going to work for your strategy. So do you have a theory of change, a vision that is based upon volume, based upon the strength and the breadth of that support, in which case the low bar is going to be best for you. Also, if you're looking to do fundraising where lots of individual giving gifts is important as well, having a low bar strategy can be really effective. But if you're looking to grow your volunteer base, you're looking to get more people involved in your campaigning program, maybe you have a local campaigning program where people do really involved actions, then maybe you should be recruiting using higher bar actions. So that's a decision only you can make based upon what your needs are as an organization. So with this then, you want to make sure that you're capturing timely issue with a political ask. So frame things around the election, mention it explicitly, consider using pictures of politicians or pictures of really political moments to capture that attention. So don't just continue talking about your usual petition that you've had going for a while in the same language and hoping that you'll get a natural uplift from the election. Frame it around the election, make it timely, make it pressing, make it urgent, because that's going to get people's attention much more. It's going to get people clicking and sharing and ultimately getting you more supporters. Make sure that the visuals that you're using are really strong. And of course, consider how you're going to frame the different asks for different channels. So if you are, if you are looking to, for example, recruit people on Facebook, you need to consider how much information are people who are coming from Facebook going to need? What kind of visuals should I be supplying? What kind of backgrounds, what kind of context, what kind of encouragement and reassurance do they need from us? Whereas if you're going to a share ask for your list, maybe they have different needs, but factoring that in when you're building your action is going to be really important. Always start with the audience and what they're going to need from you. So I'm just going to share a few examples of actions that are already live. So these actions were launched before the election was declared. So this was work that they've been doing to prepare for the upcoming election, get people engaged and build that base. So here we can see Debt Justice have done a petition action targeting party leaders. We can see similar actions have been launched a little while ago as well from Friends of the Earth, Global Justice Now, and Dementia UK. So actions like this can be really valuable for recruitment. Now, I can't say what channels they've been promoting these actions on because I haven't got the background data on them, but these kind of actions, these type of sign-up actions, simple forms, would be great for that first model of getting a high volume of people at a low cost per lead. So it is worth considering things like that as well. So then once you've created your action and you know how you're going to get people through the door, you need to, of course, then promote it. So promoting it with paid advertising is definitely a good idea. And there's also a really good opportunity there to think about how you can collaborate with colleagues. So for example, it's quite typical that a fundraising team would have budget to spend on attracting leads, and the campaigns team now has a really appealing prospect and really appealing action to recruit them. So if you team up, you can get more people supporting your campaign. You can then also have more leads for fundraising and integrated communications into the election and beyond. So it's a real win-win for the organization. As with any kind of digital ads you do, you want to make sure that you are testing different frames and testing different audiences. This is a whole topic. I can share some pre-recorded sessions from a few months ago. I can also get back to you if anyone wanted to discuss training needs or hands-on support that they need with Facebook ads, but that's a whole other webinar. So I won't go into that too much now, but just to say, if you are using ads, particularly on Meta, to promote your action for this election, please have lots of variants, lots of headlines, lots of images, lots of descriptions, lots of button labels. It's going to really help the system to optimize for you. So don't panic if you haven't started this yet. Yesterday, I went into the Facebook ads repository where you can search for ads of any page, really. I don't know if you know that exists. I can send you a link at the end, but I looked through the ad accounts for 20 to 30 different UK charities whom I would expect to be campaigning around the election. And of those 20 to 30 charities, I found just 2 that already have ads out. So don't worry if you're not doing this yet, but it is a huge opportunity. And I do really encourage you to think about it and explore whether you can be using the election to grow your base and to put you in a really good place for campaigning, for fundraising, for strengthening your organization for the rest of the year and years to come. But don't panic if you've not done it yet. I thought these 2 are quite nice though. And the other thing, of course, is sharing. Sharing is such a valuable tool for getting people to share what they're doing, to bring their friends, their family, their colleagues on board. People who are recruited by a share, so they have a link sent to them by somebody they know and trust, tend to be the most active supporters. They're the people who take the actions when you ask them. They're the people who give money, who take the higher bar asks. People who come from a share are not only free, but they are fantastic quality. So do consider how you can support your supporters to share well. Think about what platforms they're using, what content might be helpful for them. I know that WhatsApp and WhatsApp groups are really important right now. So can you be creating some images, some assets, some links, some pretty metadata on your action page, and encouraging people to share through those channels? And of course, when you ask people to share, explain the why. Explain why the strength is so important and why it's so important right now. All right, on to tip 2. Engaging your supporters. So people who are already your supporters who have just joined you and are on your list. So there's a few things you want to consider here for creating impactful actions for them. So the first is how you can create things that really tap into the resources that your supporters have, their insights, their passion, their communities, their stories that can strengthen your work in a load of different ways. And the other is how you can create campaigning actions that are engaging and connect really well with supporters, and ultimately the targets as well, but we'll come to that later. So for the first point, deepening supporter engagement, we've got a couple of examples for you here. So Praxis launched this lovely tool to support people to talk about migration with friends, family, colleagues who don't share their opinions. So this is based upon the model of deep canvassing, so having a proper dialogue rather than just spouting facts at someone or starting an argument. This is about a calm dialogue that helps people to explore their opinions and helps them to hopefully evolve them and move on and become more supportive of migrant rights and migrant issues. So this is a really lovely way that they're helping their supporters to engage on the topic at the moment and to feel confident about it and to build that support around them as well. The next example is from Shelter, where they are collecting stories of people's experience of living in social housing and all the benefits that brings. So these experiences that are collected, it gets supporters to be thinking and really caring about the issue and relating it to their own experience. But it also creates this incredible bank of information, these personal stories, these real grounded things that the organization can then use to build that strength of support behind what's coming. So think about how you can be using the passion, the knowledge, the experience of your supporters to build your case and to build the strength of your campaign. If you're looking for inspiration on engagement actions, there's a free tool available at engagement.moreonion.com, and it randomly pairs together objectives and engagement action ideas. So you can just keep hitting the button and see if that sparks some ideas, see if that helps you to rework some old ideas, come up with ways you can engage your supporters really well. And then on the second half of designing powerful campaign actions, so start with some quick ideas for you here. Of course, you could get supporters to send emails to prospective parliamentary candidates, so the would-be MPs whose data is becoming available very quickly. You can ask people to donate to buy newspaper ads to capture the attention of would-be politicians and politicians. You can ask people to put our posters in their window. You can also visit the tactics generator, which I'll mention again in a second. If you want to just scroll through some ideas and think about different things you can do that aren't just the petition, that you can do to move beyond the petition. So another lovely example from Shelter. They are offering campaigns materials to their supporters. So you can ask for a pack and you can then use those materials, you can stick one to your window, or you can get involved, and you can really feel empowered and feel knowledgeable and committed and connected to the issue over the election. So there's a few high bar things that you can do there. And as I mentioned before, there's also another idea generator, but this one is about campaign tactics. So here you can hit scramble and you'll get a tactic and a hook for it. Now, of course, with the hook this time, it might be as simple as the general election, but there's probably some moments in the general election that you want to be connecting to as well. When you're doing these actions, as you can imagine, you can tell from how many people are already with us today, lots of charities are going to be running actions in the coming weeks. It's going to be a very popular tactic. I encourage you to think a bit creatively about how you can make yours stand out and how you can make them richer. If you're asking people to contact their PPCs or share messages for their PPCs or something like this, you want to make sure that you're considering what makes yours powerful, what makes it more than just a pro forma email that's getting sent out. I'm going to keep saying PPCs probably quite a lot in this call, but just to say again, those are prospective parliamentary candidates, so the people who are hoping to be elected as MPs for this election. So the ways you can make your action stand out, you can segment it based on the targets, so any specific information about them. which I'll show you in a second, and you can personalize it based upon the supporter themselves. So the first half of that, tailoring the messages to the target, you want to be communicating with different people very differently. So you would, for example, prompt people to send a different message to a conservative target than a Labour or a Green or someone else, because those different parties have different stances and have made different declarations about your issue or about something related to your issue. So you can tailor those messages. So Conservative MPs will have something in it that references maybe the manifesto once it's released and what's in that. Same with Labour, you might have specific messages for individuals. So maybe party leaders get a different message to other candidates. And that allows you to have a bit more cut through and to feel a bit more tailored and powerful and personal. If you can say, in your manifesto, you've said X, I hope that you help make this happen by doing Y, you can then connect your issue to something they've already said. So for example, here we have, I know hedgehogs are a priority for the Conservative Party. Will you support our campaign for a new hedgehog protection law? So you can add different default messaging the supporter can then tailor using those target segments. On top of the target segments, you then want to think about how you can encourage supporters to tailor their messages so they are actually unique. So you can ask people to share their personal experiences, their motivations. You can either encourage them to edit the message itself before it's sent. However, in my experience, people are much more likely to edit and tailor the message if you ask them a simple question and then you add that answer to the message. So in this example here, simple question, why is this issue important to you? Obviously frame your question a bit more compellingly than I have done here for this example. And then you take that answer and you put it in the message that goes to the candidate. So combining those together, I know hedgehogs are a priority for the Conservative Party. I volunteer at a local wildlife centre and have seen a decline in hedgehogs in recent years. So you can add that richness, you can make your messages stand out. And ultimately, MPs are going to not automate their responses so much if you don't automate the messages themselves, if that makes sense. So the more they feel like thoughtful and personal, the more of an impact they're going to have. So connected to this, this is a continuation of the work that we've just talked about to mobilise your supporters. Because of course, what works for mobilising your supporters well, on the other side of the coin, is about maximising that relationship that you're creating with the candidates, with the politicians. And so you want to be thinking about ways that you can meet the candidates' needs in a way so that they value you and they appreciate you and they want to have a relationship with you and your organisation. So a few things you can think about. The first off is maybe, I'm not saying this is, you shouldn't do it, but maybe you should consider alternatives to having everyone email their PPCs all the time. Because if everyone follows the same tactic, their inboxes are going to be flooded and they're not going to be able to engage properly. So you could consider tactics like what we call match to target. So this is very similar to email to target actions. People put their postcode in, they get connected with their constituency and the candidates for their constituency. But instead of then instantly sending those messages to the candidates via email, it captures them. So that what you can do later is you can download all of the messages you've got for a specific constituency or particular candidate, and you can then hand them in, for example, at a hustings event, or you can ask for a face-to-face meeting. You can create that. You can still capture that richness, but create a richer relationship with the target from it. So your supporters are still writing their messages, they're still telling you what they've observed, volunteering in the wildlife centre, you're still tailoring it for the party, but instead of being an email, it gets captured and delivered together. That makes sense. Please let me know if you have any questions on that. If you're using Impact Stack at the moment, and you haven't used Match to Target yet, join us this afternoon for the call where we'll be talking a bit more. So then you want to think about as well after the election. So it's not just building that relationship pre-election and making sure that you're setting yourself on a good footing with the new, what would be MPs or continuing MPs. Think about how you can use the strength of support that you've gathered before the election to build that relationship beyond. So can you use the strength and support that you've captured to leverage meetings? Newly elected MPs are going to have lots of people trying to meet them all at once. But if you can say, this many people from your constituency have said that they support this, will you meet with us and talk about it? That's going to give you more strength. And that's going to give them more incentive to meet with you and to talk with you. And of course, the quality of those messages will make a difference too. You can hand the messages in here as well. You don't have to hand them in pre-election. You could hand them in just as successful candidates after they've been elected. You can also send thank you messages to candidates who've been supportive. And of course, you can welcome new MPs with rich content, which may or may not come from supporters. So do something a bit creative here to stand out. You could be knitting something, writing a poem. You could send flowers grown at your local community project. What is the thing that makes you stand out to your MP or to the target MPs that you're looking to meet with and build relationships with? You could get your supporters involved in this, or you could just do it in-house as you prefer. Number 4, respond to opportunities. Does anyone remember way back to the 2017 general election? So the dementia tax here suddenly became the election issue. And it was the fantastic response to this that meant that it was a U-turn, it was cancelled. And it became something that the Conservatives were no longer committed to. And that change was really dramatic. And I think it really shows the impact that politicians are listening to people at this election moment and the impact you can have to capture that attention and to make sure that your views are respected there. And the impact that charities and their expertise and their supporters can have as well, which I'm sure played a really big role in this. So make sure you are prepared if your topic becomes an election issue. It doesn't have to be the election issue, but even one of the election issues, that's a moment for you to respond to become the leading voice, to become the trusted voice, mobilize your supporters, grow your base. If you're not being responsive, you're missing so many opportunities. So make sure that you've planned that in to your work. So you're weaving in the story of the unfolding election. We're going to come into some particular timelines and dates on that in a second. But make sure you're connecting to things like the TV debates, the manifesto launches, particular activities that are in the press at the moment, any kind of get out the vote comms that you can be doing to encourage people who support you to be voting. Think about those ways you can connect and you can be responsive. But responsiveness, of course, doesn't mean that you can predict everything you want to respond to in advance. Sometimes it means that you have to be ready for the unexpected. So set yourself up to be able to move quickly. First thing here, make sure that you have good tech in place and that your data flows are working for you. If that's already there, it's something you don't have to worry about. You can just launch and be ready to go when you are ready as a team. For content and messaging, you also want to make sure that you've got as much of this signed off in advance as possible. So if you already have signed off language on how you talk about different framings and different responses to different issues, you can have ads out within minutes. You can have actions launched within minutes. You don't have to write and go through a slow sign-off process. But in the event that there is something a little bit so unpredictable that you can't actually get pre-signed off for messaging, make sure you've got a good sign-off procedure in place. So this should be really streamlined. This should be like an emergency procedure. 1, maximum 2 people reviewing that for you so you can get it out really quickly. And we're going to be releasing a report soon. Ironically, our rapid response report wasn't ready in time for the declaration of the election, but we're going to be sharing that soon as well, which has some more tips on how to set yourself up for speedy responses. So if you're already on email list, you'll get that. If you're not, just sign up to our email list on martington.com. Finally, coalitions. So I think this gets overlooked a little bit because coalitions admittedly are hard. Having been working on several coalitions in my time, I know that they can be a lot of work, but they can also be immensely rewarding. So I want you to think about how you can be building power through collaborative working, whether that's before the election or after the election. The advantages are quite obvious here. You can share resources, you can share workload, you can broaden your reach, ultimately increase your power. If you are lots of organizations saying the same thing, it has a lot more strength than one saying that thing. Even if you're lucky enough to be in a large organization, there is strength in numbers. So do work together when you can. And continue this. So this shouldn't just be when we're working to the election. We've only got 5 weeks to go now. Coalitions are pretty slow. So if you don't have one formed yet, I'm not saying don't try, but you're probably not going to have a fully fledged coalition put together in a week. So do consider what the long term looks like for that as well. So for post-election, think about the fact that there is going to be, whatever happens, I think realistically speaking, there are going to be some pretty big changes. I'm not going to jinx things by saying what I think will happen, but realistically, I think we're looking at a change of government, which means it's going to be new opportunities, much more opportunities than we've seen for the last, well, over a decade, really. So make sure you're ready to make the most of that, to jump into action. And working in a coalition is going to allow you to do that. But as I say, I know coalitions are a lot of work. Collaborating across organizations, it increases timescales and things, absolutely. But if you have the right systems in place to make it work for you, it can also save you time. So think about if you had a system in place that allows you to share actions, share assets, but then make it yours. It means that action only needs building once. And then you can simply hit clone. You can add your logo, you can add your opt-in. That's going to make a really big difference for you. So this is, if you're not using this, this is one of the functionalities that Impact Stack is offering. So if you are looking to work in a coalition or you're already in a coalition, something like this means that you can have an infinite number of different versions of an action, which can be created at a click and then edited, updated. You can customize them for your organization. But you can keep then your data very separate. And that's really critical. I remember spending far too many hours in one particular coalition where it was just constant discussions about who was managing the data and how it got securely from A to B. And if you use a good system, the data can be collected separately. So your login will only give you access to your data. Your data will sync with your email tool. It won't touch anybody else's. So you can share the assets without having to worry about the headaches. So to just really quickly look at some unknowns, obviously the unknowns aren't very reassuring, but just to say, if you don't know this, then don't worry. I think nobody does. We don't know when the televised leaders debates are happening. We don't yet know exactly when the full list of candidates will be confirmed, whatever full actually means. We know that the deadline is the 7th of June for PPC nominations. So that's a Friday. So my expectation is that it's probably going to be Monday, so that's the 10th, when we're going to know the full list of people. And realistically, their contact details won't all be 100% available at that point. But so there's a lot of unknowns there, and we've got to decide when is the time to move based upon that list. We don't know when the party's going to release their manifestos. We can make some guesses, but we don't have dates for that. And we don't know which themes and issues are going to dominate the campaign. And frankly, probably can't foresee a lot of that because it changes as different press events and different debates and opportunities occur. That's going to change throughout the period of the election as well. So just to do a bit of a whistle stop, I'm going to be sharing these slides with you. So don't worry if you want to read these in a bit more detail. Just going to do a bit of a speed through these of what we might expect. This is predictive. I cannot promise it will happen exactly like this for the next 5 weeks. So we're in week 2 now, or at least we're starting week 2 next week. So this is going to be early campaigning. Parliament is going to be dissolved on the 30th. And of course, that starts the official election period. We're going to have major parties launching the campaigns, if they haven't done so already. I know many of them already have. And party leaders are probably going to start their national tours to rally support, although I think we've all seen the photo shoots to show that that has started. Press conferences are also going to happen to outline campaigns themes, and we expect, of course, that there's going to be increased visibility of politicians in front of their voters. So think here about, okay, party leaders are starting the national tour. How do we connect to that? Is that an opportunity for us to engage with them? Where are they coming to? Is it relevant to our topic? Can we connect with them when they're there? And the same with the press. So make sure that you're prepared. So you've got your key messaging ready so you can respond if your topic becomes an issue. Week 3, so this is going to be from the 7th. We're expecting manifestos. There's going to be, of course, more campaign events, media interviews, local campaigning and canvassing is probably going to be really ramping up at this point. And of course, there'll be lots of media analysis manifestos and various articles on this. On this, make sure you have lots of great stories and assets available to support media stories. So if your topic becomes the thing being talked about, do you have a case study to share? Do you have images? Do you have a person you can put forward that can help your charity and your perspective get more attention? Week 4, we're going to be talking more about debates and policy discussions. So maybe we'll have leadership debates at that point. Of course, they're TBC. So think about these as hooks as well. Leadership debates are a great opportunity for hooks. Encourage people to have conversations with their friends and their family, maybe watch the debates together. More media analysis, regional campaigning, policy papers. There's going to be a lot more local work, especially at looking at target constituencies, so swing constituencies, which is going to then continue likely into week 5. More of the same, increasing door-to-door canvassing, more opportunities there for preparing your supporters to have those conversations. So make sure they have the resources handy. So when they're opening the door, they maybe have the 5 points that they want to talk to that person about, because that can really get fed back to the candidates and therefore to the parties. and think about how you can be just maximising that opportunity to prioritise supporters who are maybe in these swing or marginal constituencies. And then the final push, press conferences, rallies, keep the pressure up, keep getting people's input, keep engaging with the press. And then, of course, after the election, that's your opportunity to think about how you can engage with the newly elected politicians. All right, so lots to talk about there. Let me turn off my screen sharing, and we've got a little bit of time for a couple questions. Okay. Jess, are you with us?
I'm with us. Hang on, get my video back on. Hi, we've got no questions yet in the chat. I think everybody's slightly overwhelmed with information, but if we give everyone a couple of minutes, by all means, if you'd like to come off mute and just speak your question, if you want to just pop your hand up and we can call on you. I'm going to take the spotlight off Claire so that we can see everybody. Or if you prefer to pop your question in the chat, that's fine too. You don't have to feel ready to speak up. So Louise, and Zoom helpfully queues, puts everyone in a nice queue. So Louise, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I just wondered when you think we'll have the data or where to get the data from for who the candidates are. I'm hoping to do some actions about speaking to candidates and all that kind of thing, but not sure how to get that data.
Shall I take that one, Claire?
Yeah, we also.
Yeah. So candidate data is really hard to get. There's no kind of, as you've probably already found, there's an amazing project called Democracy Club, which is a crowdsourced platform, basically. So it's a group of election technology geeks who built a platform for kind of aggregating candidate data for all UK elections. So they're already working really hard to pull that data together. Anyone can create an account and contribute to that. So I've contributed to the last round of Welsh elections. I'll be working away on my local constituency data for my local area. So I would encourage everybody to take part in that. We're using Democracy Club data to power our own data sets that we're using within Impact Stack for our own clients. But it's open data, it's publicly available data. And we really value the fact that that's a public project that everyone can access, that we can integrate into our system, but that it's also available to everybody. So I'd really encourage you to both to use that data, but also to contribute to it and help it be as complete as possible.
Amazing, thanks. Would you mind dropping a link?
I'll do that as soon as I come off speech. I'll call on Mariam yet next, and I will go pull that link for you and pop it in the chat.
Hi, I just had a question. You mentioned during the thing about using pictures of politicians, and I wondered how that aligns with sort of the Charity Commission's piece around like not showing priority or preference for one politician over another. And then I've got a secondary question about fundraising, but
okay, let's start there. Yeah. So first off, this is not legal advice. Please consult your lawyer, blah, blah, blah. So with that, I wouldn't ever use a picture of a single politician because it just feels too targeted. But you could do a composite picture of different people. You could use literally like political vibes, like polling signs, Houses of Parliament. There are things you can use that invoke that political angle without having to have like what soon to be past Prime Minister's face on it. So it doesn't have to feel like you're doing that. But if you had a range of faces, or you had, I guess if the TV debates happen and they actually have more than two people on them, you'd have that picture. But you can do that carefully. But yes, don't just have one picture of somebody.
And then my second one, that's really helpful. Second one was about fundraising. If we're having these actions, is it okay to have a fundraising ask at the end of it, or does that kind of blur the lines a little bit?
Okay, in what sense?
Again, Charity Commission, is it okay to be doing? Yeah.
I think that's perfectly fine. I don't. Yeah. Again, not legal advice. But I think that's you raising money for your charity. I don't think that's going to be a political thing. If on the page it says "Tories suck, give us money," yeah, could be challenging. But if you're saying we're looking to improve the lives of people, yeah, can you support our work? I see no issue with that. But of course, do check with your colleagues to be sure that's your policy.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly from Young Lives versus Cancer. We are looking at the actions that we'd like our supporters to take, obviously over the next 6 weeks, and we're just having a debate around kind of action fatigue and whether doing a hand raiser type action now, and then in 6-7 weeks asking supporters to email their newly elected MPs if there were any thoughts around that, if that fatigue is a thing, or whether actually that engages people more because they've recently engaged with the first action.
It does exist, but I think you have a lot more leeway in the election period than you would from other times, because people know that this is special. People know that you're pushing especially hard right now. And I think the main thing is to keep it interesting. So don't just keep knocking out the same kind of actions, but think about ways you can collect their stories, you can involve them, you can do it. Have a look at there's an engagement report that you might find interesting, like ways you can make it feel fun and interesting for your supporters. Then they won't feel fatigued by it, they'll feel inspired by it. So I think the way you do it is just as important as what you do. But don't worry too much, don't tie your hands unnecessarily. People understand that this is the election period and you're going to be a bit more active.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I'm just going to take a couple of questions from the chat because I don't want people to not get answered just because they typed them. 1 second. So we have one from Anne. In terms of response party announcements, how do we keep on the right side of elections? Honestly, I'm just going to pass you to the Charity Commission for that one because that needs at least another hour. Do check out the Charity Commission website. Jess, you're nodding like you have more to put on that.
No, we can in the webinar this afternoon, I'll be just posting some links through to the relevant guidance. So I'm sure there's lots of conversations internally and most of you will have access to this already. But before we go, I'll make sure I pop those in the chat. The Charity Commission guidance I think is very helpful and very clear. So hopefully people will feel kind of confident about what they can and can't do.
Do one more quick answer and then we're going to wrap this for a quick break. So Evangeline asks, what's a good way to grow your list if you have no budget for ads? Share. Get your existing supporters to share as much as possible. They are your best resource. And also, even if you only have £5, spend the £5 because honestly, now's the time to spend it. Okay, thank you everyone. I'm mindful that I've gone over by 2 minutes. I'm going to keep the questions that you've asked and I'll get back to you if you've asked a question that hasn't been answered. I'll send you an email with the answer on that. As I say, we'll be sharing slides, recordings, etc. But for now, we're going to have a 5-minute break. And then for those of you who would like to join us, Jess is going to be doing a quick demo of Impact Stack. So if you're worried about if your campaigning technology is good enough for your plans for the election, this is a great opportunity for you to see what your options are. And that includes, of course, data sets for prospective candidates. If you're looking to do an email to candidate action, that's very easy on Impact Stack. Most of the screen grabs, in fact, all the screen grabs we looked at today were on Impact Stack as well. So thank you everyone so much for your time. Please do feel free to reach out to myself, Jess or Scott if you have any questions, but otherwise, best of luck with everything and just feel free to reach out. I'm really happy to hear from all of you and just, yeah, hopefully I'll see and speak to some of you soon. So the 5-minute break, should we then come back at 10:53? A bit specific, but okay.
So if you'd like to see a quick demo, we will see you in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Perfect. Thank you.
Feel free to stay on the call and we'll just turn our video back on when the time comes.